I used to think I understood love. My name is Mark Carter, and until yesterday, I believed love was something you chose every day, steady, built by effort, and held together by showing up. For 8 years, I put everything I had into my marriage to Brooke. She was my North Star. Delicate features, hazel eyes that once lit up when I walked in the room, a laugh that made me feel like the only man on earth. I built my whole life around us, certain we were a team braced against whatever came. Then one conversation I was never meant to hear took that picture and ripped it down the middle. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening. I came home later than usual, worn out but ready to see her. The apartment smelled like sandalwood and cinnamon from the pricey candles she liked. I loosened my tie, slipped off my shoes, and started to call her name. That was when I heard her voice from the living room. At first I figured she was on the phone with her sister, same easy tone she used when she and Jenna talked. Then I heard my name. "Mark just does not get it," she said. "I cannot stand him anymore." I stopped cold in the hallway. My chest tightened like a fist had closed around it. She kept going, each line landing like a jab I did not see coming. "Every little thing he does gets under my skin. The way he breathes too loud when he sleeps. The way he chews with his mouth a little open, even after I have told him 1,000 times. He is predictable. Same routines. Same jokes. Same everything. I feel like I am trapped in a box painted beige." I had to grab the door frame to steady myself. I wanted to believe I was hearing it wrong, that I had walked into the middle of some joke I did not understand. But the truth in her voice was not a joke. It sounded like frustration that had been stored up too long. I should have walked in and asked her what this was. Instead, I stood there in the shadow of the hall, knuckles white on the molding, like I could hold the house still by holding on to it. Her voice dropped, and what she said next finished the job. "I have not loved him in years, Jenna. I just do not know how to leave. He is comfortable. He is reliable. But I do not want reliable anymore. I want to feel alive again." The air left my lungs. The woman I had vowed to stand with saw me as a weight around her ankle. A cage, not a partner. I do not know how long I stayed there. Part of me wanted to burst into the room and demand answers, to make her see the damage of every word I had just heard. Another part wanted to vanish, to erase 8 years and pretend I had never turned down that hallway. What I did was something I did not plan. I turned, walked to our bedroom, and pulled a duffel bag from the closet. My hands shook while I packed. Shirts, socks, enough for a few days, maybe a week. I moved like a man following orders he could not hear. When I zipped the bag, my eyes landed on our wedding photo on the dresser. Brooke was glowing, arms around me, eyes bright with promise. I stared at that picture and felt like a fool. Had I missed this from the start? Was she waiting for an excuse to run the whole time? I clenched my jaw and looked away. Back in the hallway, I heard her laugh at something on the phone. Light, careless, like she had not just taken a blade to our life. I stepped into the living room with the duffel in my hand. She sat on the gray sectional, phone to her ear, still smiling, until she saw me. The smile fell off her face. "Mark," she said, blinking. "What are you doing?" I did not answer right away. I let the quiet sit. I watched her shift, watched the moment she understood that I had heard enough to know the truth. The wall she had been building around her other life started to crack. I said the only words that fit in my mouth. "I hope you find what you are looking for, Brooke." Her lips parted. Nothing came out. I did not wait for more. I turned, walked to the front door, and left. I did not know where I was headed. I did not know what the next hour would look like, much less tomorrow. I only knew this. I was done being somebody's comfortable option. The night air hit my face when I stepped outside, cool and sharp, but it barely registered. My head was noise. My heart thudded in my ears like someone pounding on a door. I did not have a plan. I only knew I could not stay. I slid into the driver's seat and wrapped both hands around the wheel until my knuckles went pale. A long, shaky breath left my mouth. It did nothing. Brooke's voice kept looping, mean in its honesty. "I have not loved him in years. I do not know how to leave." I expected anger to rush in. Instead, there was a hollow space inside me that felt as deep as a well. 8 years. I had poured 8 years into loving a woman who now saw me as a placeholder. The worst part was how blind I had been. I stared through the windshield until the street doubled. I could not go to a friend's place. Too many of our friends were shared, and I was not ready to tell that story at a front door with a duffel in my hand. My parents were states away. A hotel would stamp this as real, and I was not ready to print it in ink. So I drove. The city thinned out. Streetlights threw long, pale shadows that slid across empty lanes. I gripped the wheel and played back the months behind us, hunting for cracks I should have seen. How Brooke stopped reaching for my hand on the couch. The sigh she let out when I talked about my day. The time she spent bent over her phone, smiling at messages that never came from me. Had she been waiting for me to leave first, just to keep her hands clean? I pulled into a deserted lot near the harbor. The dashboard clock glowed a soft blue. Far off, waves hit the rocks in a steady rhythm that did not match the mess in my chest. I cut the engine. The ticking of the cooling motor filled the car. I leaned my forehead against the wheel and let the pain come. Betrayal, shame, the slow ache of realizing a marriage can be two different stories told under the same roof. I wanted to lie to myself and call it a rough patch. But what I heard in the apartment had not been anger or heat of the moment poison. It was the flat weight of truth. She was already gone. I just had not noticed the door closing. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. The screen lit the cabin. Brooke. I stared at her name until the call almost died. Then I thumbed it open. Mark. Her voice came cautious, like she was testing a step. Where are you? I said nothing. The quiet stretched between us, thick and heavy. She breathed out. Look, I do not know what is going on, but I heard you, I said. My voice surprised me. Steady. I heard everything. Silence. Then a small stutter. What? I heard you, Brooke. The quiet that followed was louder than shouting. I could hear the faint hum of our apartment in the background, like the building itself was listening. I did not mean, she started. Do not lie to me. Her breath hitched. Another long stretch with nothing in it. Where are you? She asked at last, softer than before. I could have told her. I could have let her try to talk me back into the house and into the same life. I could have waited for excuses or a script about needing space. I did not want any of it. I ended the call. For the first time in years, a simple truth took shape in my mind without wobbling. I had spent almost a decade loving a woman who did not love me back. I would not spend another minute doing it. I did not sleep. I sat in the dark car and watched the ocean make and unmake itself, one wave after another. The crash against stone was steady, like a clock marking off a life that still belonged to me. I realized I still had both hands locked on the wheel, braced for impact even though the wreck had already happened. At some point I checked my phone again. 7 missed calls. 3 messages. Where are you, Mark? Come home. We need to talk. You are being dramatic. Let us be adults about this. Dramatic, I said out loud, a dry laugh catching in my throat. I shook my head in the bluish light. I let the screen go dark, leaned back, and stared up through the windshield at a slice of sky. Somewhere out there the morning was waiting to show up, whether I was ready or not. I did not know where I would sleep, or what I would do when the sun came up. But I knew this much. I was done being the safe choice in someone else's life. I had just listened to my wife say she could not stand me, that she had not loved me in years, and somehow I was the one being dramatic. She had boiled our marriage down to an inconvenience, a thing that trapped her, and now she wanted a neat conversation as if this were a small misunderstanding. I tossed my phone onto the passenger seat and pressed both hands over my face. Exhaustion slid up my spine, but sleep was not coming. Adrenaline and heartbreak had me wired. My mind kept pulling up small moments I had ignored and laying them out like evidence. I had been blind. And yet, under the sting of it all, a numb calm spread through me. The worst had already stepped into the room. The only thing left was to accept that it was real. The first pale stripe of morning showed on the horizon, and the car felt smaller by the second. I turned the key. I could not sit there forever. I did not know my next move, but I knew one thing for certain. I was not going home. I drove without a plan. The road unrolled in front of me, mile after mile, putting distance between me and a life that no longer fit. Empty streets gave way to early traffic. Porch lights blinked off one by one. The world stretched and yawned into a normal morning, like it had not heard that mine had collapsed in the night. When my stomach finally reminded me I had skipped dinner, I pulled into a diner at the edge of town. It was not my kind of place most days, faded neon buzzing, cracked asphalt with a few cars scattered around, the smell of hot grease and strong coffee sliding out from the door. But right then I just needed a place to sit and breathe. I took a stool at the counter. A waitress with tired eyes and a kind smile set a heavy mug in front of me and filled it without asking, as if she could read the shape of my night in my face. Tough night? She asked, one eyebrow raised. You could say that, I answered, the laugh that came with it catching in my throat. She did not push. She slid a menu toward me and moved down the line to give me space. I was grateful. I did not have words for a stranger, not when I could barely name what I felt. I stared at the menu and did not see a single thing on it. Silverware clinked. Someone laughed at a corner booth. An old radio hummed a song I did not recognize. It all felt distant, like a television left on in another room. The world kept right on being the world while I sat there trying to remember where my life ended and the next version began. I should have been home making coffee. I should have heard Brooke's footsteps in the hallway and the soft rumble of the shower. That was the picture I had in my head of this morning. Instead, I sat under a flickering sign with a stale coffee smell and a heart that had finally stopped pretending. The phone buzzed again. Another message. Brooke, Mark, please at least let me explain. Explain what? That she had been wearing a mask for years. That every, I love you, was just a line to keep the peace until she found the door. That she was waiting for courage while I kept loving her in good faith. I clenched my jaw and slid the phone back into my pocket. I was not ready for explanations. Maybe I never would be. For the first time in a long time, I had to ask what I needed. The trouble was, I did not know the answer yet. Time stretched out. My coffee cooled. My thoughts circled the drain and came up empty. The weight of the night pressed on my chest, but the edges of the pain dulled like a storm moving offshore. I expected to fall apart. What I felt instead was hollow and strangely steady, like a house after a fire, charred, standing. The waitress returned and looked me over for half a second. She did not ask if I was ready to order. She reached for the pot and topped off the mug. You look like someone who needs a hot meal, she said. Pancakes or eggs? I blinked at her, surprised by the mercy in the question. Pancakes, please. She nodded, jotted it down, and walked away. I caught my reflection in the window. Hair wild. Shirt wrinkled from sleeping upright in the car. Eyes that looked like someone had pulled the light out of them and not bothered to put it back. The sun got itself over the ridge and turned the glass into a mirror. I held my own stare for a beat. A simple truth settled in again. I could be angry later. I could be sad later. Right now, I just had to keep moving forward, one small choice at a time. Eat, breathe, stand up, until the shape of a new life started to show. I hardly knew the man in the window. The glass threw back a tired face and hollow eyes that did not look like mine. The bell over the diner door chimed softly. I did not turn. I watched the strip of sunlight climb the far wall, slow as a clock hand. Then I heard a voice I knew too well. Mark. My stomach dropped. I turned, bracing without meaning to. Brooke stood just inside the door, arms folded across her chest, hair a little out of place like she had left the house in a hurry. Her face was hard to read, caught somewhere between frustration and fear. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Even the grill seemed to go quiet, like the room was waiting to see which way this would bend. I wrapped my fingers around the coffee cup until the heat bit my skin. How did you find me? She took a small step closer. You always drive when you are upset. I figured you would end up somewhere quiet. She glanced around, the corner of her mouth pulling tight. I did not expect a diner. I kept my face still. You disappeared, she said. I woke up and you were gone. I did not disappear, I said. I walked away. She flinched at that. Good. I motioned to the empty stool across from me. Since you are here, go on. Explain. She hesitated, like she had not counted on me giving her the floor. After a moment, she sat, her hands folded together on the table, then laced, then unfolded again. Nervous. That was new. I did not mean for you to hear that, she said. I was venting. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Venting. Yes. She leaned forward a little. Every couple has rough patches. Sometimes we say things we do not mean. How long has our rough patch lasted? I asked. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked down. You said you have not loved me in years, Brooke, I said. My voice stayed even, but I could feel the crack forming in my chest. That is not a rough patch. That is not heat of the moment. That is the truth. Her eyes slid away. Guilt showed, and then she tried to push it down. All this time, I said, were you waiting for me to leave first? Waiting for an excuse? No, she said quickly. I was not waiting. She rubbed her temples and blew out a sharp breath. I did not know how to bring it up. You did not know how to tell your husband you no longer loved him, I said quietly. So you let me keep trying. You let me believe. She winced. I did not mean for it to be like this. It is like this, I said. The waitress slid a plate of pancakes in front of me, the steam curling up in small ghosts. Her eyes flicked to Brooke for half a second, and then she moved on. The room filled with the soft clink of cups and a low radio song I could not name. The tension between us sat heavy as a third person at the table. So, Brooke said at last, fingers knotting around a paper sugar packet, "What now?" I cut a piece of pancake and chewed slowly, letting the silence stretch until it felt like its own kind of answer. When I spoke, my voice was steady. "I do not know yet," I said. "But I am done being your comfortable option." Color left her face. For the first time since last night, I felt something like control return to my hands. She watched me with an expression I knew too well, calculating and unsure. This was not the scene she pictured. Maybe she thought I would plead or argue, or start listing all the ways we could glue a cracked thing back together. I was not going to be the man who begged to be loved. She swallowed whatever she had been about to say and reached for the sugar packet again, turning it end over end. I watched her. After 8 years, I could read the small tells, the way she bit her lip when a lie was forming, the tap of 2 fingers when she hit a piece of the story. Those quirks used to feel intimate, like a language only we spoke. Now they felt like alarms. "I am not proud of what I said," she managed finally. "You need to understand, I was not trying to hurt you." "What were you trying to do?" I asked. She shifted in the seat. I felt stuck. For a long time. Like I woke up and I was not the person who stood with you in that photo anymore. She let the air out in a hard exhale. "And I know that is not fair to you." I set the fork down and folded my hands on the table. The blinds threw narrow bars of light across the worn formica and across her wrist. Somewhere in the kitchen, a timer dinged. I felt the weight of the moment settle into place. "Fair or not," I said, "you told the truth last night. I heard it. I cannot unhear it." "I know I should have talked to you," Brooke said, steadying herself. "But, Mark, you have never been good at seeing the signs. You always think everything is fine." I held her gaze. "Because you let me think it was." She flinched, but did not fight it. I set my fork down and leaned in. "Let me ask you something, Brooke. If I had not overheard you last night, would you have ever told me?" Her eyes slid to the side. That was my answer. My stomach turned. I had been married to a woman who could live with a lie as long as it kept the surface smooth. She stayed, not out of love, but because leaving would have taken courage. The worst part was not knowing whether she would have walked out someday or stayed put until we were both old and numb. She rubbed her temples. "I do not know what you want me to say." "That is the problem," I said, leaning back. "You never do." For a long beat we sat in the low hum of the diner. Plates clinked. Voices blended into a warm murmur. The old jukebox in the corner sputtered to life and faded again. Then she did something I did not expect. She reached across the table and set her hand on mine. It made me look at her. For the first time since this started, I saw something raw in her face. Not guilt. Not regret. Fear. "I do not want to lose you," she whispered. I blinked. Of all the lines I had braced for, that was not one of them. I slid my hand back, kept my eyes on hers. "You do not want to lose me," I said. "But you do not love me." She swallowed. "I do not know. I do not know if what we have is love anymore, Mark, but I do not want it to end like this." A laugh came out of me without any humor in it. "You do not want it to end because it is messy, because it is uncomfortable, not because you actually want me." She did not argue. That was the final nail. I let out a slow breath and nudged the plate away. "I do not know what is worse," I said. "Hearing that you do not love me, or knowing you would have let me keep loving you anyway." Her eyes shone, but I did not feel sorry for her anymore. I pulled a few bills from my pocket, set them on the table, and stood. Brooke rose too, studying my face like she was hunting for a switch to stop what was already in motion. "Mark," she said, voice cracking, "can we at least—" "No," I said, cutting it off. "We cannot." She drew a sharp breath. I did not stay to watch whatever came next. I walked past the counter, out the door, and into the bright edge of morning. The air felt different, lighter, as if some weight had lifted an inch even while the cold in my chest held on. Sunlight warmed the back of my neck. I crossed the lot to my car and took the handle in my palm, but I did not open the door. Not yet. I stood there and faced my own reflection in the window. A man who looked used up stared back, tired eyes, rough stubble I had not bothered to shave, shoulders curled like I had been carrying a load too long. Was this what 8 years with Brooke had made of me? A man so used to being overlooked that he missed the moment he went from loved to tolerated? I clenched my jaw and pushed that thought away. Not now. Not here. Footsteps scuffed on the pavement behind me. I stiffened. Mark, please do not walk away. I closed my eyes for a second and turned. Brooke stood by the door, arms wrapped tight around herself, panic and anger wrestling on her face. I do not understand, she said, shaking her head. Why are you making this so final? We can talk about this. We can figure it out. Figure out what? I asked. My voice was quiet but solid. How to pretend for another 5 years. How to help you stay miserable without feeling it. She flinched, throat working as she swallowed. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, barely above a whisper. But you did. I dragged a hand through my hair and felt the day's grit under my fingers. You think this is only about what you said last night, Brooke? This is about the years you looked through me like I was furniture. The years you let me believe in a story that was not real. Her shoulders sagged. For a second I saw the girl from our wedding photo. Then the image went flat again. Cars hissed by on the road beyond the lot. A gull cried somewhere over the roofline. The morning kept moving forward. I am not going home, I said. Not today. She took a breath like she might chase me with one more promise, one more plan, one more almost. I opened the car door and stepped back from the conversation that had already told me everything I needed to know. The seat was cold. The steering wheel felt familiar in my hands. I did not know where I would go next. I only knew I was done letting someone else's fear decide the shape of my life. Brooke bit her lip and turned away. I was not trying to be cruel. No, I said. You were trying to be comfortable. Her head snapped up. Her eyes flashed like a struck match. And what about you? Do you think you were the perfect husband? Do you think I was the only one who was unhappy? I let out a dry laugh. No, I was not perfect. But I did not lie to you. That landed. Her jaw tightened like she might argue. Then her shoulders fell. For the first time, she looked small, smaller than the version I had carried around in my head for years. I had built my life around her. I had made her the center of every plan. Standing in the cracked parking lot of a nowhere-town diner, I finally saw what I should have seen a long time ago. She was not my whole world. She was a part of it, a part that no longer fit. She drew a shaky breath. So what now? I glanced at the car, then back at her. Now I figure out who I am without you. Her breath caught. I watched the truth settle in. This was not a scene where I waited for her to steer. I was not standing by for her to decide what came next. I was done. I did not wait for an answer. I opened the door and slid behind the wheel. When the engine turned over, I saw her in the rearview mirror, frozen in the lot, arms at her sides, watching me go. A pinch of guilt tried to climb into the car with me. For a moment, I almost let it, and then I pressed the pedal and pulled away. I did not look back. I drove without a destination. The road hummed under me, a steady sound in the space where Brooke's voice used to live. Town names came and went. Pines leaned into the wind. Billboards blurred by like half-remembered promises. I was not running, but I was not ready to stop either. The weight in my chest grew heavier the farther I went. It was not only heartbreak. It was the years of refusing to see, the years of telling myself that effort and loyalty could cover for the missing pieces. No spark, no honesty. I had lived inside a story I wanted to be true. Now that it had fallen apart, I had to meet the man standing outside of it. I was not sure who that man was. I pulled into a gas station on the edge of a small town. The place looked stuck in another decade, sun-faded sign over the pumps, a single rusted vending machine buzzing near the door, the smell of hot tar and motor oil hanging in the air. I stepped out. Cool air stung my skin awake. My back popped when I stretched. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed. The clerk did not look up when I grabbed a bottle of water and a protein bar. Near the back, a man in his late 50s flipped through a magazine. His hands were rough and nicked, working man hands, and his brow held a thoughtful crease. Something about him felt familiar, though I could not place from where. Maybe it was just the way he carried himself, steady, no hurry. He sensed me watching, looked up, and our eyes met. Recognition flickered across his face, more human than personal, and he nodded, as if to say he had seen my kind of night before. You look like you have been driving a long time, he said. His voice was rough, worn smooth by years. I hesitated, then nodded, trying to outrun something. I tried to smile and failed. More like trying to figure out where I am supposed to be. He set the magazine down and leaned his elbows on the counter. That is the thing about leaving, he said. You do not always know where you are going. Sometimes that is the best part. His words dropped into me and settled heavier than I expected. I paid for the water and the bar, nodded my thanks, and stepped back into the thin fall light. The man's voice kept echoing as the door shut behind me. I had been staring so hard at what I had lost that I had not bothered to look at what might be ahead. I sat in the driver's seat and held the wheel, staring down the two-lane road like it might answer back. For the first time in years, I did not owe anyone my next move. I did not have to walk in the door at a fixed time. I did not have to ask Brooke what she needed before I knew my own shape. The thought scared me. It also felt like air in my lungs. The phone lit up with unread messages from Brooke. I scrolled past them. My thumb stopped over a name I had not tapped in too long. Marcus. My brother and I had let time do what time does. Jobs, miles, family plans. Calls got short. Messages went unanswered. But if anyone would understand a life snapping in half and a man trying to build a new one, it would be him. I drew in a breath that was steadier than the last and pressed call. The call rang twice before a sleepy voice came on. Mark. Marcus sounded groggy, like I had pulled him out of a deep dream. He cleared his throat, the way he always did when he was waking up. Man, it has been a while. Everything okay? I stared through the windshield at the pale morning sky and let out a long breath. No, I said, but I think I am finally ready to figure out what okay looks like. Marcus did not push. He has never been that kind of brother. He let me talk in pieces. I did not unload the whole story, just enough. Enough for him to say, you do not have to figure this out alone. Something loosened in my chest at those words. He told me to come stay for a bit. No pressure. No schedule. Just a place to land while I sorted the wreckage. For the first time since I had walked out of that apartment, I said yes to something that had nothing to do with Brooke. The drive to his place took a few hours. The phone sat quiet on the seat beside me. I kept expecting it to light up again with another attempt to pull me back, but it did not. Maybe she had finally understood that I was not coming home. By the time I turned onto Marcus's road, the sun was dropping behind the trees. He was out front, leaning on his old pickup with his arms crossed, like he had been there 10 minutes watching for my headlights. When I stepped out of the car, he did not pepper me with questions. He looked me over, eyes, posture, the way I carried my shoulders, and gave a small nod. Good to see you, man, he said. Something inside me nodded. He did not ask if I was all right. He did not expect me to pretend I was fine. He just knew. Inside, he handed me a cold beer, and we took it back out to the porch. We sat in the easy kind of quiet only family can hold. Cicadas rattled in the trees. A dog barked twice down the street and went silent. The evening was warm, but not heavy, a soft wrap instead of a weight. I realized it had been a very long time since I had felt anything close to that kind of peace. No tension to manage, no fear of saying the wrong thing, no balancing act to keep the room calm. Do you regret it? Marcus asked after a while, not looking at me, just watching the sky get darker. I took a slow drink and let the question land. Did I regret walking away from the life I had built, from the woman I had once loved? No, I said at last. I regret not seeing it sooner. Leaving might be the first thing I have done for myself in a long time. He nodded like he already knew the answer. Good. For the first time, I believed it. I did not have a plan. I could not see the end of the road. But for the first time in years, the future did not feel like a trap. It felt like a highway opening up in front of me, mile after mile, waiting. 2 months later, I stood in the hallway outside the apartment Brooke and I had shared and felt a strange, clean distance. I was here to pick up the last of my things. Marcus had finally said what I needed to hear. Closed the door for good. I slid the key in the lock and stepped inside, maybe for the last time. The place felt like a stage set after the play was over. Same furniture, same framed photos, even the faint trace of those sandalwood candles she loved, but none of it felt like mine. It was a life I recognized without the belonging that used to come with it. I moved through the rooms and gathered the last pieces I wanted. A few books, some records, my father's old watch with the worn leather band. I left the rest. I did not want museum pieces of a marriage that was gone. I was zipping the bag when the front door opened. I knew the voice before I saw her. Mark? Your car is outside. I did not expect. She stopped in the bedroom doorway. Brooke looked different. Shorter hair, a sharp new style that did not suit the person I remembered. New clothes. New edges. 2 months, and she already looked like a stranger living in my old space. I just came to grab the last of my things, I said. My voice surprised me by being steady. She crossed her arms. I thought you might send Marcus. He offered, I said. I needed to do this myself. Silence slid in between us. The kind of silence I used to rush to fill. I let it stand. I filed the divorce papers, I said finally. My attorney should have sent them. She swallowed and gave a small nod. I got them. Good. I lifted the bag and started toward the door. She reached out without quite thinking, fingers brushing my arm. Mark, wait. Her voice had a softness I had not heard in a long time. I have been thinking about what happened, about what I said. I was wrong. I stopped and looked at her. Really looked. Once upon a time, those words would have knocked me off my feet. I would have dropped everything to try again. It does not matter if you were wrong, I said, quiet but clear. What matters is that it was true. Her eyes shone. What if I do not want it to be true anymore? What if I finally see what I lost? I studied the face I had memorized for years. I waited for the old pull. It did not come. No ache, no longing, no tug backward. Just a simple, still honesty. I am sorry, I said, and I meant that part. But I am not the man I was 2 months ago. I am not the man who waits for you to decide if I am worth loving. I found my own road, Brooke. It does not lead back here. A tear slipped down her cheek. So this is really it. I nodded. This is really it. I walked past her and down the hall, out of the bedroom that was no longer ours, out of the apartment that had become a museum of someone else's life. The weight I expected did not land on my shoulders. Step by step, I felt lighter. Outside, the sky was a bright, impossible blue. I drew in a deep breath that filled every corner of my lungs, and something I had not felt in a long time rose to the surface. Hope. I set the bag on the passenger seat, climbed in, and started the engine. As I pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of Brooke in the rear view, standing at the window, watching me go. This time there was no guilt, and there was no turning back. I eased onto the road and let the city fall away behind me. Ahead, the day waited, wide open.